Tonight on Dispatches, English football up for sale, and the football legend who says he can help us cash in.
I disagree with people when they say football's a sport. Football lost its sporting thing when all the money started going up in Sky TV and all that. Football's a business.
We go undercover to show how football clubs can be bought and secretly owned.
Obviously we need to keep this anonymous.
Yeah, we don't want the FA...
no, we don't want anybody blocking it, so we've got to be careful.
We meet a Far Eastern businessman claiming he can deliver English clubs on a plate.
Does he want to buy Leicester?
Leicester, Lenia?
Cardiff?
We reveal extraordinary claims of access and influence.
You put 5 million into the fund. I'll arrange for you and me. We have dinner with Sir Alex Ferguson. Then Sir Alex Ferguson will tell you that he's going to lend me the players.
Is British football heading for a meltdown?
It's my life. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I just love my football.
Whenever you have a tidal wave of cash going into anything, whether it's the housing market or the city or football, that creates real dangers.
And is it your club that we came close to buying? Bangkok, Thailand, and we're in town to buy a football club, an English football club. Our undercover reporters are posing as representatives of a consortium of Chinese and Indian businessmen.
That's where the money's coming from. Let's make some money.
And we're here to meet representatives of London Nominees Limited, a company which runs a football investment fund.
A Man U bar and restaurant, Manchester United.
London Nominees Football Fund channels money from wealthy investors into football-related activities. The meeting will be at Bangkok's Manchester United bar, part of an international franchise licensed by Manchester United. Once inside, we're introduced to the chief executive of London Nominees Limited, a fund manager called Andrew Leppard.
Hi. Nice to meet you, finally.
To its lawyer, Steve Burkill.
Oh, right.
And to Brian Robson, the former captain of Manchester United and England, and at that time, manager of Thailand.
Honour and a privilege.
Okay.
We'd gone undercover because we had suspicions London Nominees were breaking FA rules. We wanted to find out exactly what they were offering investors.
What we're looking at is any business in football which is commercially viable that we feel that we can add value to, and we're looking for a 20 to 30% return on our money per annum on average. That's what we're looking for, and we're actually looking within 3 to 5 years to exit every investment that go in a huge amount of money. So we're looking for investments that one business can complement the other business, the next business can complement that business. So we're creating, if you like, an engine or a conveyor belt of the companies that can assist each other.
Players, academies, agents, even TV shows. The fund intended to invest across the board. We said we had a specific interest.
Will the fund be investing in clubs? Well, is that one of the ideas?
If it meets,
it can be an idea.
If it meets our criteria, if we can secure the investment, if we got an exit, try and hit.
They told us they'd already been looking at clubs. Leeds United, Cardiff City and Oxford United, all mentioned as possible targets.
I think it depends as well on clubs. When you talk about taking over clubs, can you get a good investment of where you can maybe sell the training ground, you know, a big supermarket buys it off you for a great price, then you go into a greenbelt area and build a new training ground, but you've actually made loads of profit which now you can put into players' wages or into the stadium, that type of thing.
Robson felt one club in particular was ripe for takeover.
Sheffield Wednesday can be a real big Premiership club. So if you're talking about taking a gamble on and you really want to achieve and make big money, Sheffield Wednesday is the one to do it with. Because if you get in the Premiership with Sheffield Wednesday, you're going to get
fantastic fan base.
35 to 38,000 capacity fans. 50 million. Sheffield Wednesday in no danger can be worth 300, 350 million.
How much can we buy it for, do you think? 10 plus 10, Dad?
think you might get it even less than that now.
A single season in the Premiership can be worth more than £100 million. The key was promotion.
What would you do to Sheffield to make it back into the Premier League? Would you going to buy players?
That's possible.
You're going to buy in players?
You can get players who are good enough on free transfers nowadays, especially at that level. And then your loan deals are the biggest, because if you can get a few really good players from the Premiership to come down there, because people are doing you favours, that's your best route.
At our first meeting, we were being offered not just a football club, but potentially a fast track to Premiership riches, and possibly a whole lot more. Well, here it is, the London Nominees Football Fund website, and it's a pretty slick affair. It talks about a unique investment. There's Brian Robson, prominently displayed. But have a look at this. The small print from their promotional literature, where it says the fund identifies English Championship clubs, plural, to obtain promotion to the Premiership. Well, it's a fundamental rule for both the FA and the Football League that you cannot have interests in or influence over more than one football club. So could it be that these people are interested in flouting that fundamental rule? We decided to find out. The next day, we had a second meeting at the Manchester United bar.
That's for yourself or for your dad?
So that was actually worn in the Charity Shield.
Really?
She's going to flog that now.
Player.
We told London Nominees we'd spoken to our financial backers overnight, and they had a proposal.
We want to buy Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
We also want to buy another one.
Yeah.
My people were mentioning Cardiff, if it's available.
Cardiff is available.
Yeah.
It'll not be cheap.
Okay. Can we do 2 clubs through the fund?
Yes.
What we could do, we can structure it.
Yeah.
I think what we would probably do is we would set up a sub-fund to own a club, because as we said...
We were proposing we buy 2 clubs, a violation of FA rules. Far from objecting, they set about finding ways to conceal it.
I would suggest you want to buy 2 clubs.
Yeah.
We bought one through the fund.
Yeah.
And we bought one through one of the fund's investments.
One of the fund's investments?
Yes.
Yeah. But we would be the investor?
Yes.
In that fund?
Yes.
Okay.
What we got, but obviously what we
This is how you name it, because you're only allowed to own one club.
So, and the good thing about a football fund is you can buy it and nobody will know it's you.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Then they started joking about the clear conflict of interests involved.
So which team are you going to support? Team A or Team B?
That's the one who have to draw each other in the FA Cup.
During a chat outside, it was clear Chief Executive Andrew Leppard knew that the buying of 2 clubs was a breach of FA rules.
Obviously we need to keep this anonymous, and we need to stay as much under the radar as we can and buy the clubs, and then when people want to say, hang on a minute, where's the link there?
Yeah, we don't want the FA...
no, we don't want anybody blocking it, so we've got to be careful.
Back inside, we put a further proposal to them.
The other stipulation, that they want Brian to be the manager of Sheffield Wednesday.
That'd be difficult. My problem with that is I'm Manchester United's global ambassador. I do not see how I can be global ambassador for Manchester United when I'm working for an English club.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put it another way then.
Okay. And just going on that, and Brian's perfectly capable of managing the manager.
Exactly. That was the other thing we were going to mention. If Brian is not available to be the full-time, the manager de facto, would you be interested in working behind the scenes to build this club up?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, if it's within the football fund, that is my whole intention, to try and make it as successful as possible.
Yeah.
This again would appear to breach Football League and FA rules on individuals having an interest in or influence over more than one club. We showed our footage to Greg Clark, chairman of the Football League, the body directly responsible for the regulation of professional clubs below Premiership level.
The big danger we have in what we call the integrity of the competition is undermined by people owning more than one club. Why is that important to the average fan? It's important because that owner could decide which of those two clubs gets the star centre forward. It could decide maybe this is a game they don't need to win as much as the other team who might get promoted on the back of it. We don't want people having the ability to affect results, squad selections, source of managers across a number of clubs, and that's why multiple club ownership is beyond the pale.
He did say everything's got its price.
Discretion is absolutely the key here.
Back in Bangkok, the foundations of our business relationship had now been established.
Our objective is to buy cheap,
Yes.
build it up,
And out.
and out.
Fine.
No, if this is something that you don't want to do, or
It's fine.
you know, if it's against your principles, you know,
No,
it
that's
doesn't
exactly
matter.
what the Stamp Fund stands for. We're in business.
We're in business. We want to buy.
I've always worked like this. I disagree with people when they say football's a sport. Football lost its sporting thing when all the money started going up in Sky TV and all that.
Yeah.
Football's a business.
Yeah.
And so if you build a club up and you build it up from nothing and say it was worth 3 million when you bought it and now you can sell it for 150 million, that's great business by you.
In part 2, we meet the man pulling the strings behind London nominees and hear remarkable claims of contacts and influence.
Brian know Alex for, I think, 26 years. I have known Alex for 14 years. He both on a professional basis, you know, and we is like on a family basis. So they left players to us.
Posing as a consortium of Indian and Chinese investors, we're looking into the activities of a Bangkok-based football investment fund called London Nominees. They've agreed to be our partners in the purchase of 2 English league clubs, a violation of football regulations.
String the ends down.
See, what is how you name it, because you're only allowed to own one club.
So, and the good thing about a football fund is you can buy it and nobody will know it's you.
Yeah, that's the idea.
As talks continued in Bangkok's Manchester United bar, London Nominees decided to take negotiations up a level.
Before we start going to this, it would be a good idea. Take this a little bit further and bring Joe in, right?
Yeah.
Why would we need to bring Joe in? He's the owner of this bar, isn't he?
Yeah. I think Joe's responsible for stringing this football fund together.
Oh, I see. I had the impression that you wanted to get the bar
If it
in.
wasn't for Joe, there would be no football fund. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I wouldn't be here.
No, if it wasn't for Joe, me and Brian wouldn't.
Right, got it. You, yeah.
Because what that will do is it'll get you results, it'll get you all his contacts, it will get you all the access to the players, and it will, I think you need to meet him.
Joe was Joe Sim, who runs the Manchester United bar franchise for both Thailand and Korea. His name appears nowhere on the London Nominees website, but it was clear he was the real power behind the fund.
I enjoy you, okay, pal.
Joining that.
Listen, mate, have you got anything on at the moment? Could you be across to the Man U bar within the next half hour?
We soon found out just how important a figure Joe Sim was.
Are you with Mr. Haman? Right, Joe. You having lunch? Yeah, you're having lunch.
Joe Sim was having lunch with Mohammed bin Hammam, the president of the Asian Football Confederation, who at the time was running for the presidency of FIFA, football's most powerful job. Sim turned up a couple of hours later.
You want a drink, a beer?
What are you gentlemen drinking? Me, which I've given.
Presented with nothing more than a name card, Sim got straight down to business.
So your fund is interested to invest in, to buy 2 championship clubs?
Correct.
With the aim of getting...
Or first division.
Or first division.
Yeah.
If the club's big enough to.
Yeah.
To get promoted to the Premiership club.
Correct.
And then sell the club.
Correct. Yesterday, Brian explained to us that you're not looking for a quick return here, mate. If you're going to do this, it's a 3 to 5 year minimum.
Yeah, he's a bit conservative. I think we can get up Yeah, by 2 to 3 years.
Robson spelled out his own approach to buying a club.
Yeah.
The one thing that this football fund or anybody involved in the football fund will not do, we will not bump a club to sell the stadium and build a development, and we're like folded the club, so then that club doesn't exist anymore. I cannot afford to have that against my name. I'm in place there.
Robson, Burkill and Leopard had initially been cautious about buying a club immediately. Sim told us he'd already been looking for a club for a couple of years.
We were supposed to buy one club, but unfortunately we were slow by 1 week, so we got bought off. We were supposed to buy Watford. So this time we're looking at one club seriously now, but I don't want to tell the name to anybody now in case it gets sold again.
Yeah, bad luck to mention the name there. Yeah.
So for this club we can buy any time because we are talking to the shareholders.
Is Sheffield Wednesday?
Sheffield Wednesday is gone. It's gone.
It doesn't mean that it's not available, but
Somebody bought it 6 months
ago.
Right.
There's another club as good as Sheffield Wednesday that's available that we are looking at it now.
Which one is that?
I don't think I should tell you.
Okay.
From now on, we would be in the dark about our takeover targets. Sim himself would be our partner.
20% equity and 5% to me.
Yeah. Then Joe looks after you?
I look after them.
Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct.
Is that you don't sound too confident?
Is that the way you want to do it?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's the same, right? We're going to split the thing.
We were now an anonymous consortium negotiating to buy an anonymous English football club with a man who just an hour before we'd known only as a bar owner. So who is Joe Sim? His business card describes him as chief advisor to the Thai FA. He was present at the unveiling of Brian Robson as Thailand's manager in 2010, an appointment he told us he was responsible for. A wealthy businessman, he told us he'd made much of his money in gambling. But his main selling point was his connections.
By his own account, Joe Sim sits at the centre of a web of Asian football contacts. He subcontracts that Manchester United bar from Peter Lim. Remember him? He tried to buy Liverpool last year. He says he was invited by the then Prime Minister of Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra, to open a casino there. Remember, he owned Manchester City for a while. And he says the Asian owner of Leicester City and the Asian owner of Cardiff City turned to him for help and advice with those clubs. And as we've been seeing, he'd had lunch with Mohammed bin Hammam.
After the meeting, he stressed how close he was to the FIFA presidential candidate.
And I'm a very close friend with President Hammam. Tonight we are having a second dinner again.
Oh, I see.
Because we are discussing about his election thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wants myself and our Thai president to help him to get the vote.
Yeah.
Because he will be busy going to other
countries,
other continents.
Yeah.
A few weeks after this conversation, Mohammed bin Hammam was suspended from FIFA following accusations he'd attempted to bribe FIFA representatives in the Caribbean, a part of his campaign Sim was not involved in. With two clubs potentially on offer, we left Sim in Bangkok saying we needed time to talk to our financial backers.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
We showed our footage to former FA chairman Lord Treesman, who's been a fierce critic of the way football is run.
Can we do two clubs through the fund?
Yes. What we could do, we can structure it.
Yeah.
It's a very worrying thing to watch, is the truth of it. What penalises the fans most is if the game is not run properly, if there isn't true competition, if one way or another people have bent the rules so it's not what's happening on the pitch, but what's happening in a boardroom on the other side of the world.
We've come to Bangkok because increasingly it's in the Far East where deals are done on British clubs, often by men whom Joe Sim claims as close business associates. Now, of course, the fans of debt-ridden clubs often welcome multi-millionaire foreign owners with open arms, but these takeovers don't always end happily.
Only last year, Portsmouth went into administration following a succession of foreign takeover deals which left it on the brink of bankruptcy.
It's my life. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I just love my football.
The arrest 3 weeks ago of Birmingham City owner Carson Young on charges of money laundering further highlighted the dangers of reliance on obscure foreign funding. Money which appears suddenly out of nowhere can equally quickly disappear, leaving clubs high and dry. Gillian Tett has analysed football's finances for the Financial Times.
Whenever you get a market with a lot of money swirling around, where it's pretty opaque, where it's very hard to assign real value to things, and where you have a lot of investors who are investing for reasons which may not be purely commercial, you ought to have some red lights flashing. Some of the sources of the finance are not entirely clear, and it would be incredibly sad if the type of trust and emotion and loyalty and passion that gets aroused by football ends up being badly abused.
3 weeks after our first meeting with Joe Sim, we returned to Bangkok to continue the negotiations. We introduced a Mr. Gupta, supposedly a senior figure in the consortium we represented. We told Leopard and Sim little about him, other than that he'd mainly made his money in India's illegal gambling industry. The meetings now shifted from the Manchester United bar to the offices of London nominees' lawyers, Watson, Farley and Williams.
We have the meeting in the London room.
Okay, the London room. Jay Gupta, Mr. Joe Sim.
Hello, how are you?
Jay Gupta.
How are you doing? Mr. Gupta?
Mr. Gupta spoke through a translator. His job was to ask the tough questions.
What Mr. Gupta wants to hone in on, he's pinpointed exactly for this venture, for him and his investors to be a success. It all depends upon, what he's saying is the quality of the players. We need good players.
Good players will explain to you, it will not be a problem. With Brian's relationship with the managers in Premier League, with my relationship with the managers in Premier League, we are able to get players without buying them.
As in our first meeting, they said the key to their strategy was to exploit the loan system, the arrangement whereby professional clubs lend players to each other on short-term contracts.
Let's say Manchester United, they have a big team of players, so these players need to play to get experience. You know, so Manchester United will lend us their players to us if we have a good relationship with the manager. Brian will know Alex for I think 26 years. I have known Alex for 14 years. He both on a professional basis, you know, and we is like on a family basis. So they lend players to us.
Do you have this relationship with more than one manager, or is it? Are we reliant on just the one man to supply the loan players?
Brian is very close to Steve Bruce, Birmingham, you know.
Alex McLeish at Birmingham.
And they will help us.
Of course.
Kenny Dalglish at Liverpool.
This is all Premier League team?
Yeah, they're all good friends of mine because I was a manager for 12 years in the Premiership.
All of the managers we contacted about Mr. Sim's claims of player loans vigorously denied knowing him or anything about his promises. To show the importance of personal contacts in the loan market, Robson and his colleagues pointed to the example of Preston, where Alex Ferguson loaned players to his son Darren, until Darren's sacking as manager there last December.
Joe, how many players did Darren Ferguson have on loan?
He used to have 2 from Preston.
When he was at Preston, he had two or 3?
Yeah.
And then when he left, they went back?
They went back.
Yeah.
They went back the same afternoon.
So it shows how, no, but my point is it shows how it's relationship driven.
And now he wants to discuss the legal structure I've explained to
Mr.
him...
Gupta now quizzed them on how the legal ownership of the clubs would be organised, given that owning two clubs is against football regulations.
So the first thing we would do is we would set up a sub-fund, a separate fund.
They'd already done their homework.
So we will make a loan to special purpose vehicle number 1 to purchase club number 1.
Yeah.
And we make a loan to special purpose vehicle number 2 to purchase number 2. Now, obviously, the benefit...
But who will be the vehicle number 2?
So legally, the fund does not own the club.
Right. He's saying who will be the owners then? Now, will Joe be one, or Joe's team be one owner?
We will have the people that will front the club. So these people need to be approved by the British authority that they are
fit and proper.
Yeah. And this,
Yeah.
So we have to get 2% to be the owner that is fit and proper. Once all the paper is done, you put in 5 million into the fund. I'll read for you and me. We have dinner with Sir Alex Ferguson. Then Sir Alex Ferguson will tell you that he's going to lend me the players.
London nominees seemed confident they could get round football's regulations demanding that club owners prove they are fit and proper people to run a business. Would it really be that easy?
You've been on the inside. Looking at this, does it strike you as plausible that they could have got away with it?
I think if you hide ownership between different people, I think their words were who would front the operation. If you hide the financial facts either through funds or through spin-out special vehicles that the funds create, it would be possible to get away with it. And that's why my view, sadly actually, my view is that when you do detect something like that happening, you have to say the consequences will always be dire.
When you see what you've just seen,
Yeah.
could they have got away with it?
Yes, they could have got away with it, because it's very, very difficult to get to the bottom of whether there are economic linkages between organisations that at face value seem to be separate companies and people. We are a simple alliance of 72 Football League clubs who largely lose money. We don't have hundreds of thousands, let alone millions, to get to the bottom of these complicated organisational structures.
We decided to do some digging in Company's House to see if we could find out just who owns English football, and these are the records for the Premier League. Turns out Wolves are owned in Guernsey, Sunderland are owned in Jersey, Fulham are owned in Bermuda, and Spurs are owned in the Bahamas, and on it goes. All of these, of course, offshore locations where you're not obliged to list publicly details of ownership. In the Championship, it's even less transparent. Perhaps Barnsley Town takes your fancy, and if so, you'll find they're owned by Oakwell Holdings, except all the shares are held by the Manchester solicitor Mark Openshaw Blower. When we phoned up Mark Openshaw Blower, he said he wasn't the owner, but he wouldn't tell us who was. Perhaps Southampton Football Club takes your fancy, and if it does, you'll find their owners rejoice under the title of DMW SL 613 Limited. And the owner of that company turns out to be a Swiss-German businessman, Markus Lieber. Herr Lieber died a year ago.
In the Premier League today, all but 5 of the 20 clubs are wholly or partly owned either abroad or in offshore trusts. Of the 24 clubs in the Championship, 17 have owners who are foreign, offshore, unknown or dead.
Are you confident that you know who the owners are of every club in the Football League?
No, I'm not. There's a process of validation that lets the Football League know who the owners are. Who the owners of the owners are gets more difficult, and who the owners of the owners of the owners are gets even more difficult.
We were now deep inside this world of obscure financing and hidden owners. That evening, Sim invited our undercover reporter to watch the Champions League quarter-final between Manchester United and Chelsea in the back room of the Manchester United bar, a place, he said, where he had also entertained Sir Alex Ferguson.
You know, when I go with Alex Alex Ferguson. I collect all the camera, all the phones. Alex love a good party also.
So when he comes here, we just collect the phone?
I have to protect him, no?
Yeah.
Because one photo is worth £500,000.
Yeah.
I have to protect him.
The claim of a relationship with the Manchester United boss was now emerging as central to Sim's business strategy. The next day we visited Joe Sim's office, which turned out to be a shrine to Manchester United.
This is only 2 portraits in the world. The famous painter draw for Alex. So Alex gave me one.
For all your help and friendship to Joe.
Sim took us downstairs to a restaurant he owned. On the walls, pictures of Alex Ferguson and David Gill, Manchester United's chief executive, at the opening of another Sim-owned restaurant. Over lunch, we probed Sim's relationship with Ferguson, which Sim told us began when a friend asked him to look after the Manchester United boss during a trip to Bangkok 14 years before.
So Alex, I help him many things which I cannot tell you, on a private basis.
Yeah.
So you have him one is enough. So every time he come Asia, I'll be together with him.
Yeah.
Then twice a year, I'll go to Manchester to see him.
Yeah.
But every week we are talking on the phone and message.
And there appeared to be numerous messages from an address listed as Alex Ferguson Work.
He'll tell me which football team to bet also.
He tell you which football team to bet?
Yeah.
That's good.
Good information.
Yeah.
But not all the time it's accurate.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But he never said anything about Manchester United. Only other teams.
Yeah.
Just for fun. But not serious.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
So close was the relationship, Sim claimed, that Ferguson would even persuade others to do us favours.
He want to help you. He knows everybody.
Yeah.
He can call anybody he wants.
He's that
Joe,
powerful.
you help him, no?
So he can call other teams?
He can call, of course.
To lend us players?
Of course. Steve Bruce is under him before.
Yeah.
Roy Keane also under him before.
Yeah.
Mark Hughes is under him before.
Yeah.
So all these are all managers now.
Yeah.
He give one call, they'll help.
Steve Bruce, Roy Keane and Mark Hughes all vigorously denied knowing Sim or anything about his promises.
Steve will come across about 5:30 or so.
That's good. Yeah.
Later that afternoon, we were due to sign a contract with London nominees. Instead, we left town, telling them Mr. Gupta had a family crisis. But for our investigation, we still needed to find out if London nominees really were talking to English clubs. And we wanted to probe further Joe Sim's claims of a friendship with Alex Ferguson.
I'm very happy because Alex Ferguson is my brother.
Yeah.
So in front of the dinner, he told everybody, oh, if Joe buy a club, I'll give him players.
Our undercover reporters are closing in on a deal to buy 2 English football clubs, a violation of FA and Football League rules.
Obviously, we need to keep this anonymous.
Yeah, we don't want the FA.
No, we don't want anybody blocking it, so we've got to be careful.
The deal is being done with Bangkok-based investment fund London Nominees, fronted by former England captain Brian Robson.
Cheers.
I disagree with people when they say football's a sport. Football lost its sporting thing when all the money started going up in Sky TV and all that.
Yeah.
Football's a business.
At the end of April, our would-be partner, Thai businessman Joe Sim, flew into London. He said he was here for takeover talks with the club. But was this true? And was there any basis to Sim's claims of a relationship with Sir Alex Ferguson? He told us he was attending the Manchester United-Everton game at Old Trafford as a guest of Ferguson. We asked for an introduction, but he refused, saying we would meet the Manchester United boss only when we had put money up. That evening, we rang him.
Hello, Joe. It's John.
Yeah, John, what can I do for you, John?
How are you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm still having dinner here in Manchester.
Okay, you having dinner with Sir Alex?
Yeah, I'm with Sir Alex now. You want to say hello to Sir Alex?
Yes, please.
Can you say hello to my friend John? Say hello to him. Hello.
Hello, Sir Alex.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Sir Alex. I was at the match today.
Oh, you there?
I was there. Fantastic game.
Yeah, the kept going, always do. They keep going all the time, John.
Thank you for talking to me.
Pleasure, John. I'll pass you back to Joe.
Thank you.
You call me Tuesday or Wednesday, we meet up together.
Okay.
Bye, John.
Bye. Bye, Joe. Bye.
A few days later, we met at a casino in London. Sim showed us a photo of himself with Ferguson.
This is a dinner.
I got Alex to talk to you, huh?
Yeah, I explained to him.
Ever eager to show off the closeness of the relationship, he shared some inside gossip.
Alex is going to retire in 3 years' time.
Gonna 3 year retire, why not? Are we in trouble then? Are we gonna be in trouble?
By the time we are in Premiership, why are you worried? You know?
Cheers.
He claimed he had discussed the takeover of a club with Ferguson.
But I'm very happy because Alex Ferguson is my brother.
Yeah.
So in front of the dinner, he told everybody, oh, if Joe buy a club, I'll give him players. He told everybody.
Sim said he was close to a deal for a club, but still refused to tell us the name.
Once it's done, I'll tell him the Football Club.
Okay.
Okay? Because the owner of the Football Club is coming to see me in Bangkok on Friday. You need him to put in 15 million pounds, 15, to the Super Club. There's no point for us to talk.
I know.
We've been talking for a long time.
We didn't, of course, send the money, but London nominees were determined not to let the deal slide. A few days later, they sent us a draft agreement.
This is the document they sent us, and it states quite clearly that we will be the exclusive investor in a fund set up for the purpose of purchasing football clubs, plural. It'll identify suitable English clubs for acquisition and managing them to achieve promotion to the English Premier League. We have to put in £25 million for each club. That's 15 up front, 10 thereafter. London nominees and Brian Robson, though, won't be risking any of their cash. In return for their expertise and above all their range of contacts, they will get a 20% stake and a 5% management fee.
3 weeks later, we returned to the same casino in London for what would be our final meeting with Joe Sim. We'd hammered out a deal. We would sign a confidentiality agreement. In return, they would tell us the name of our first club. There was just one problem. London nominee's lawyer wanted to see Mr. Gupta's passport.
Is Mr. Gupta coming?
No. Gupta signed the power of attorney.
We had prepared a legal document supposedly authorising our reporter to sign on Mr. Gupta's behalf.
And his father have signed it.
His father signed it?
Yeah.
So I think I have to scan this to Steve. After I'll scan this, I'll send it to him straight away. Let him have a look first. Yeah.
Sim insisted on faxing the document to the London nominee's lawyer, Steve Burkill. While we waited for a response, Sim showed us a slideshow of his recent trip to Manchester.
This is at the match last week, 2 weeks ago, Man U Everton match.
Wow, that's a great photo.
Is this in Old Trafford?
No, this is at the restaurant in Manchester called the St. Carlos.
St. Carlos?
Yeah, St. Carlos in Manchester City.
Once again, Sim was holding up his relationship with Ferguson as a key part of his business strategy. He now revealed that we were not the only people he was planning to buy a club with.
Because I want to do two at one time. I will get the best one for us, don't worry.
Is it through London Nominees? You're going to do it through London Nominees?
My consortium, the one I'm doing, is not through London Nominees. It's direct to me.
For you.
The other one, actually, I can tell you the name who is going to be more. Peter Lim, the one that want to buy Liverpool.
Sim was intending to buy a club with his business partner, Singaporean billionaire Peter Lim, at the same time as our first club. He would then buy a second club with us further down the line, meaning that in all, he would have a stake in 3 clubs. Sim's 28-year-old daughter Jackie arrived with the confidentiality agreement for us to sign.
We need you to do it in blood, you know.
Yeah.
The Asian way. So that we can be blood brothers.
Yeah.
Sim's plan was that Jackie would be the legal owner of our first club.
Brian asked us, so I asked him to come here for my daughter will be the one in the front.
Yeah.
I'll be the advisor to the board.
Exactly, yeah.
Because if I'm in the front, then we cannot do a lot of things behind. Yeah. We are behind, then a lot of people will help you from behind.
He's the puppet master.
Sounds like it.
Sim had thought through all the details.
Then we need a PR company, because the fan is also a headache. The football fan. We have to do PR for them to accept the new owners also. We have to engage a PR company to put in announcements to say, oh, the new owner is going to put in substantial amount to improve the club, to get the fan to be on the owner side also.
Yeah.
Finally, the lawyer Steve Burkill responded.
900 million. 900 million. I think this is the reply you're waiting for.
There was a problem. Burkill still wanted a copy of Mr. Gupta's passport.
Trust base and 2.
No, we need 2 copies of. Just now I told you the other passport.
So you just mentioned to him that John promised he was sent to him by Monday, because Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah,
We knew we couldn't send a copy of the passport. Our chance to find out the name of the club seemed to be slipping away. But then, Sim overruled his own lawyer.
I think we can do that. Now I'll show you. Since you are so eager. I haven't received the document yet, I'll show you.
thank you.
Measure of trust. Okay, this is from the morning that we went to look at. You just go, and you'll see the club eventually.
You've been there already?
Really?
Sheffield United.
Newly relegated to the First Division, Sheffield United are £57 million in debt, according to their latest accounts.
So that's the stadium. It's a nice stadium.
Yeah.
For this, we were expected to pay £15 million.
Yeah.
So who is this man here?
The owner's son.
The man in the photos is Scott McCabe, son of Sheffield United's owner Kevin McCabe and a director at the club.
Happy, John? Huh?
Thank God.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Shall I call Jeff?
Cool, Jeff. Yeah, we're good to go now.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Bye.
Sheffield United confirmed they had met Joe Sim as a potential buyer, but told us they would have carried out full due diligence checks on him before proceeding with any sale. They added they were as concerned as anyone about the concealment of club ownership and said owners had to be good custodians. London Nominees denied that they or anyone associated with them would breach or offer to breach FA or Football League regulations. They denied that
what was offered was a structure where somehow the same investors could own 2 or more clubs.
They said
ownership of even one club was not on offer, but investment into a fund which would invest into a company which would own a club.
And that the fund would have been a separate legal entity. They insisted that there was no attempt to conceal the club's true owners and it would have been run without external influence. Joe Sim, they added, could help negotiate loan players through his relationships in football. Mr. Sim denied saying that Sir Alex Ferguson would
call in favours from other managers,
but that as a friend,
Mr Sim was confident that Sir Alex would help if he could.
They told us that Brian Robson
would not act as manager of any acquired club, but would work behind the scenes.
And
would do what he could to assist to build the club, as it would be consistent with his role as consultant to the Football Fund.
They say they operate an entirely proper business and would have undertaken independent due diligence on any buyer to ensure they met the fit and proper test. Sir Alex Ferguson's lawyers confirmed that Joe Sim is a friend of the manager and had attended the dinner in Manchester. They added that
it would be fair to say he does not see their relationship in the same close way that Mr Sim appears to have presented it.
They explained he'd not heard of London nominees or the Football Fund and had no knowledge of the proposed transaction, and denied he'd promised Joe Sim favours. They insisted
he has never discussed the possibility of loaning any Manchester United players. He may have, on occasions, given his opinion on the likely outcome of a football match in the course of ordinary social dialogue. He does not recollect having done so in the context of any betting by Mr Sim.
A few days later, we contacted London nominees to tell them our backers were not interested in Sheffield United. They replied, suggesting Leeds, Leicester or Cardiff instead.
In all, we were being offered 9 football clubs by London nominees, all potential takeover targets. Leeds United, Leicester City, Cardiff City and the 2 Sheffield clubs, but also Oxford United, Derby County, Birmingham City and Crystal Palace. These are clubs with hundreds of thousands of dedicated fans. Yet here they were being chucked around like so many poker chips in the back room of a bar in Bangkok.
Does he want to buy Leicester?
Leicester, Lenia?
Cardiff?
Cardiff?
Yeah. Football's a business.
Yeah.
And so if you build a club up and you build it up from nothing and say it was worth 3 million when you bought it and now you can sell it for 150 million, that's great business by you.
We're going to be in trouble.
By the time we're in Premiership, why are you worried? You know?
Cheers.
Tonight, you've been right inside football's casino economy. And now we know they could have got away with it.
Whenever you have a tidal wave of cash going into anything, whether it's a housing market or the city or football, that creates real dangers. When football was just a sport, as it were, run in a fairly amateurish way, it was good enough to have amateurish oversight. But it's very clear now, given the amount of money involved, that actually regulators need to raise their game.
Either the FA will resume its proper authority, which is what it is expected to do by FIFA, or alternatively somebody will say, do we need some other form of regulatory supervision? But what I don't want is that football itself becomes a plaything for people who can find their way around what all of the football loving community really thinks is at the heart of their sport.
To join the discussion about the issue